This reading is from Practicing Mindfulness by Mark M. Muse. You don't know what is ailing the pushy woman behind you or the slow man in front of you in line. What you do know is that they are seeking happiness just like you, and probably doing so in the same misguided ways you are. Just like me is a versatile practice. It can be performed just about anywhere at any time. You can practice as you read about or watch events in the news, taking a moment to ponder why others behave the way they do, trying to imagine how you would react in a similar situation, reflecting on the ways that we share a common humanity. Just like me is extremely effective for establishing empathy with others, particularly those we find difficult to like. Empathy and compassion do not require that we feel affection for the other. We can have compassion on our worst enemies.
And today's scripture reading is John chapter 8, verses 2 through 9. At daybreak, Jesus reappeared in the temple area, and when the people started coming to him, Jesus sat down and began to teach them. A couple had been caught in the act of adultery, though the scribes and Pharisees brought only the woman, and they made her stand in front of everyone. Teacher, they said, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. In the law of Moses, the punishment for this act is stoning. What do you say about that? They were posing this question to trap Jesus so that they could charge him with something. Jesus simply bent down and started tracing on the ground with his finger. When they persisted in the questioning, Jesus straightened up and said to them, let the person among you who is without sin throw the first stone at her. Then he bent down again and wrote on the ground. The audience drifted away one by one, beginning with the elder. This left Jesus alone with the woman, who continued to stand there.
Thanks for coming this morning. I appreciate it. Thought I might be talking to an empty room. This sermon didn't get off to a very promising start. Diane and I were at breakfast. I told her that I'd been asked to speak here. She said, well, what are you going to speak about? And I said, well, I think I'm going to talk about compassion. And she said, what? You? And I had a moment of doubt. But I persevered. And I told her, I practice compassion. And I'll get to that in a minute. What is compassion? Compassion is when we stand by someone else emotionally, with our emotional support. We help them bear a burden. We give of ourselves. We scoop in there and find that place in there that can empathize with that person, and we stand by them. We're not afraid of that pain. And we're not afraid of our own pain. We help alleviate the loneliness of suffering. For those of you who have suffered, either physically or mentally, you know that it can be a lonely experience. Compassion is not pity. We're not feeling sorry for someone. When we're feeling sorry for someone, there's a little wall there. There's a big wall there, actually. There's a big wall over there, and you're peering over the wall, and you say, golly, that's too bad. It sucks to be you. And you might offer, like, a little piece of advice, like, the good Lord doesn't give us any more burdens than we can bear. The complete opposite of compassion is a German word which I believe is pronounced Schadenfreude. And with the Schadenfreude, we take a kind of amusement at the suffering of others. And perhaps you have been, a victim of that, or maybe you've been a victim of pity, and you understand how demeaning that can be. As many of you know, I really have a strong interest in Buddhism, Buddhist practices, Buddhist thought. I don't claim to be a Buddhist. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm a Christian. But it is interesting to me that compassion is where Buddhism and Christianity truly meet. They meet in that one place. And this Bible reading, the adulterous woman, is a perfect example of Jesus showing his compassion. Jesus is walking around and those Pharisees are dogging him again. You know what I picture when I think of a Pharisee? I think of a guy in a big black robe, mouth downturned, big white beard. They were always questioning Jesus and wherever he went and whatever he did. And this time, they say, hey, look, we have an adulteress here. She has committed adultery. And according to the law of Moses, she should be stoned. What do you say, Jesus? And Jesus takes his time. He writes in the sand. He is, after all, coming up with a perfect response. He says, she's broken God's law. She needs to be stoned. The person among you who has not broken God's law, I want you to throw the first stone. And according to the reading, gradually the Pharisees depart, and Jesus is left standing alone. It was the perfect response because he said, she's just like you. She's just like you. You've broken God's laws. She has too. I practice, and I'm not telling you to do this, you do not have to do this, I practice a Buddhist practice called Just Like Me. And the way it goes is like this. Before we left for our trip to North Carolina this December, I went to the bank, had to do some business. There were 3 tellers at the bank, there was a long line. And there was one guy who seemed to have so much to do there that he didn't move at all, slow moving line, one. But the other bank tellers are doing his business, and now I'm starting to study that guy. What is it that he's doing that's so darn important? He is, after all, biting into my time. And I'm just kind of getting irritated with the guy. A little overtime, he's probably and so I could see that the transaction was finally concluding. He was getting some cash back. And he proceeds to take the cash, the currency, and kind of get it all straight. And at that point, I said, just like me. And I started looking into this situation and seeing where that guy and I have similarities, where we share the same world, It wasn't hard to do. Old guy, maybe a little out of it. Not quite kept to the idea of, the current banking practice, Have I ever been in that position? Just a few days later, Diane and Elizabeth and I were at a counter, we're at a check-in at Southwest Airlines, fighting a computer glitch, that nobody's fault, just a computer's glitch, but something was wrong with our ticket. and a big line was queuing up to check their bags, while a committee of 3 people were standing around and helping us figure out a new itinerary on our ticket. We were in the same position that guy was in. Well, just like me, you can use it all the time. I'm going down Newman Road, just trying to get home. A car whizzes by me going about 30 miles an hour faster than I'm going. Seems to me like he's endangering my life and maybe endangering the life of others. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but he's passing on the right. Well, I'm angry. But I'm saying, just like me, I've been there. Have I ever broken a traffic law? Have I ever gone too fast in a car? Was I young once and thinking that if I stepped on the gas, I'd get there quicker? It helps. It helps to do a little just like me. This summer I got treated kind of rudely at the grocery store. Unnecessary comment by a young guy, and I left kind of shaking my head, like, what the heck? But just like me, boy, I've taught school for 34 years. I know what it's like to be pushed to the limit, to finally get tired of it all and maybe get a little rude with somebody, with a client or something. I've been there. I have a little more trouble with people who are going up against my treasured beliefs. In my studio area, there's a woman who's a friend, a good friend. And her belief is that all religions should be abolished, that all churches should be knocked down. It should all go away. She hates religion. Well, there's a part of me that wants to argue with that. But I know that by going up against her, it isn't going to change her opinion much. In fact, it might cement her opinion just a little bit more. And I can say to myself, well, I've had some crazy opinions in my life that I stood by, and I don't want to go into it, but I know what it's like to fervently hold on to some belief that may or may not be true. So why do you do this just like me business? Why would anybody do this? And I would have to say that for me personally, that there is a certain sense of antagonism and irritation which gets softened. In fact, I'd say that my worldview is a little softer. I don't feel quite as competitive, and that makes a big difference. In fact, I would say that it makes me happier. But there's always a catch. Can I have compassion for the people I really don't like? Can I have compassion for that political figure who's been in my face for 4 years that I really, really disagree with? Can I have compassion for that person who seems to go out of their way to find some smart comment about me or something I'm doing or something I'm saying? There's another Buddhist practice called metta-meditation. And in metta-meditation, you wish happiness to all sentient creatures. You wish them, and there's sort of a ritual involved here, you wish them freedom from pain, both mental and physical. You wish them freedom from the anxiety and fear. You wish them balance and openness. And you wish them the kind of balance that helps them take the hard parts of life in stride. Well, the first time I did a metta meditation, I did it from a CD in a guided meditation. And the person guiding us, guiding the people, said, well, think of your friends or your inner circle or your, the tribe that you are with, and wish them happiness. Now, think about the strangers you've seen recently, the people you don't know. Wish them happiness. Time to think of that guy standing in the bank line. Maybe he was getting that money to distribute to his children. Maybe he's a valued member of his family. I wish him happiness. And now, wish happiness to the people you simply don't like. And I remember when I was going through this on the CD, it was like a big wall fell down. Like a big wall. No, I can't do that. I'm not going to wish happiness for I'm not going to do it. I was kind of, not disappointed in myself. I was a little shocked, though. I was a little shocked that I felt that way. And I was bothered to the point that I really kind of contemplated that. The thought kept kind of circling, not all the time, of course, but once in a while that thought would emerge. Why couldn't I do that? Why couldn't I begin to do that? And gradually, over time, I began to sense the basic unhappiness that the people that I was up against were exhibiting. I sensed often a sense of greed, not only for money, but for power, or attention, or reputation. I sensed a feeling of clinging. They were clinging to something. Maybe they were clinging to a way they used to be in the past. Maybe they were not accepting the fate that was now given to them at this moment in their life. Have I ever been there? Yep. In fact, that's one of the chief causes of unhappiness, is just not being able to accept what's been given to us on our plate. I think everybody here would just as soon have a compassionate world, or a more compassionate world. But where was that going to come from? If you're only going to be compassionate to the people in your inner circle, well, that's just where you are to begin with. I think to embody that more compassionate world, we do, to an extent, have to let in the people that we don't like and wish them happiness. Because if they were truly happy, maybe they wouldn't be acting like that. Finally, if you juggle this around, if you juggle this idea of compassion around, the day might come, you might be able to have a little compassion for yourself. I stand before you, a 74-year-old guy who's made his share of mistakes in this world. And just like the song, regrets I have a few. But the person who did all these things, he was just like me. He was me. I did the best I could with the little knowledge, with the little wisdom I had at the time. That's just what I did. Let's have a little compassion for ourselves, a little forgiveness. I'm going to end here with a story about my daughter, Emily. Emily and I like to get into little philosophical back and forth discussions, When we meet, she lives in North Carolina, so we don't have much of a chance to do that, but when it happens, it's fun. sort of. And I was telling her, Emily, I went to a sermon recently, and the sermon was talking about Bible stories, and how many people have been misguided by Bible stories, and the minister talked about Adam and Eve, and how the Adam and Eve story is about the subjugation of women, blaming women for everything. Everybody seemed to be nodding their head in the congregation. And I said, Emily, that isn't what that story is about. That story is about two stupid kids, the first two kids around, who are set in the garden. They have everything they need. And all they have to do is obey one law. They have to obey one law. You know what that law was? Anyone? Yeah, what?
Not to eat the apples?
Yes! That's my man, Chase. Thank you, sir. God said, do not eat that apple, that big, juicy, delicious-looking apple right here in the center of the garden. You see that beautiful apple right there? Don't eat it. Oh, and then there's that serpent. Don't talk to him. So, who knows? Maybe Eve being a little bit more sociable than Adam. It ended up, what? She's going to talk to Adam for the rest of her life? You mix it up a little bit. Talk to the serpent. Okay, so now, you see, God left the room. God left the garden. Now he's back. Now God's back. What do you know? Somebody took a big bite out of the apple. You see, Emily, that story is about our willingness to self-destruct. We've been busy self-destructing ever since. God gives us laws and we break them right and left. And then there's the laws that we give ourselves. Don't have that second drink. Eat more vegetables. You look in the paper, there's a new law every day that's going to make you healthier and happier. It's hard to keep all those laws. So Emily said, okay, Dad. Okay. But you know what that story is also about? It's also about how men have somehow been able to climb over women throughout history, subjugate them, make them feel like less than they are, push them down ever so gently or maybe roughly. And here it is, one of the first stories ever recorded. And what's it about? A woman screwing up. If you were a woman, Dad, I think you'd understand. And I looked at her, and I didn't say anything, but in my mind, I said, just like me.